Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tea with Marie and Everything British. I'm so excited today. I've been thinking about it all day to introduce a really good friend of mine who I have not seen for quite a while because she lives in Pennsylvania. She and her husband, John, were wonderful customers at my old tea shop at Taste of Britain. But I also first met Yvonne. Well, I did meet her in a Taste of Britain, but it was through the radio. Yvonne was a radio show personality, and I was advertising on that particular radio station. And they sent her in to meet with me, and she read my ad, which was great. Got me a lot of business. So in addition to being a radio personality, she's also a published author, a writer, a storyteller, a thanatologist. Did I say that correctly, Yvonne?
Yes.
I did. Okay. And also a dedicated mom and grandma. And so, as I say, she's a great storyteller. And the story we're going to have her tell us today is not a particularly happy one, but one that I think is very timely right now with everything that's going on in Ukraine. So Yvonne is a survivor of the Second World War and lived in London throughout the Blitz. And so we're going to talk a little bit today, and she's going to share with us just some of her experiences during that time. So Yvonne, I wanted to ask you first of all, what is your earliest memory of the war?
My earliest memory was that the family, a lot of my extended family had been on holiday in Blean, which is just outside Canterbury in Kent. And shortly before my 6th birthday, war was declared, September the 3rd, 1939. And all my family upped and left me there, said I would be safer there. No explanation. So that was my first evacuation, and it was very traumatic. But I was well taken care of. It was on a farm, so I was able to drink milk directly from the cow, which tastes very different.
But who was taking care of you? Was this
farmer's wife? They left me with the family.
So you were on vacation and they
just left and went home. Yeah, just like that. As I say, and I've said this many times, my family created the word dysfunctional. So,
okay.
So that was, I had my birthday, my 6th birthday there, right there. And they were very kind, but I was very, very unhappy. So I went back to London. I'd been there, I don't know how many months, I can't remember. But I went back to London, and in the beginning, in 1939, they used to call it the fake war because nothing much happened. But when I went back in 1940, that's when it hit the fan.
Yeah.
That's when the heavy bombing came with, I mean, there was one time that there were 2,000 bombs dropped in one night.
Oh my goodness.
In 41 and 42, it was day and night. So we were bombed out twice. And
now, wait a minute. When you say bombed out, explain that to me.
Well, we lived in the East End originally. I was born in Brixton, but then they moved to the East End. And we were
this is the East End of London, yeah.
Yes, I'm always in London.
Always.
Then we went back to the Oval, around Kennington, and we were bombed out there. Our house was hit. And then we moved to Brixton, back to Brixton, and our house was bombed, but it was shattered, so we were able to stay there. It wasn't hopeless after that. So in the meantime, my school, when I was 8, decided to evacuate to a place called Highbridge in Somerset.
Oh, I know Highbridge. That's where my sister lives.
Little village.
Yes.
I was.
never knew that.
Yeah. So we were all on a bus, and nobody said goodbye. I had a little tag on my shoulder.
Oh my goodness.
Nobody said goodbye. Nobody said where we're going, whatever. And at that moment, at 8 years old, I can remember clearly on that bus, I shut down, completely shut down emotionally.
Yeah.
So when the bus arrived at the town hall in Highbridge, this tall, elderly man with silver hair came and he pointed and said, "I'll take that one." That was me. And I didn't think twice about it. I just held his hand and I went with him.
Oh my goodness.
And he was just lovely to me. His wife and his daughter were not. But then he had another daughter living across the garden, the area. And she had 6 sons, and they were very kind. In fact, the oldest son was in the Royal Air Force, and he just took me under his wing, kind of protected me. So the only thing I can't recall is how long I was there, but I did the same thing. I got sick again, had to go back to London.
Yeah.
So I was in the
Now,
work.
in between these times, what is your mom doing? Like, is she communicating with you, or you didn't hear anything?
My grandmother did. And I had a little doll called Queenie, and I was allowed to hold her half an hour every Sunday. But if I cried when I heard the news on the radio, London was bombed, if I cried, I was not allowed to hold Queenie. A lot of things happened, yes. I mean, look, I see it, I understand it. We were forced on people. If they had a spare bedroom, they had to take an evacuee. And they all thought that Londoners had fleas. And
oh, so they weren't very nice. Oh, really? So there you are, just a group of kids. Was it general that most of them didn't know where they were going or what was happening, or was that your particular family?
Oh, it was my family.
Okay. And your family just didn't talk?
No, sound of silence.
Didn't communicate, just...
No, not at all. And I wasn't very well received when I went back to London. They didn't want me back there. So I had that whole experience, but I learned so much from the people in that war. And, you know, you mentioned Ukraine.
Yeah.
That's what London looked like when I was a little girl, except they have it much worse than we did.
Really? Why?
Because they're invaded. We were not invaded. We were invaded from the air.
Right.
Dropping bombs. And had air raid shelter. Although my mother would never go to an air raid shelter. We went into the cellar.
Oh, so you didn't go into air raid shelters?
She would not go. Went downstairs into the cellar, which was the basement, I think they call it.
Were you scared?
Sometimes. When the house shook, I was scared. But interestingly, the things you remember. We had a little dog called Brownie. Very creative, our families, because it was brown. So we called it Brownie. And this is a dog, about 20 minutes before the air raid, he would run under the table and cry.
He knew.
Well, they have this super sensory aspect of animals.
Wow.
So he would warn us.
Do you think, like, you know, when I talked to my mum a little bit, she had to deal with some planes flying over an air raid thing. I don't know, they were near somewhere in County Durham, but nothing like you're experiencing. But I remember saying to her, well, were you scared when the air raid things went off? She said, oh no, we thought we're getting out of school now.
Oh, how wonderful.
Well, of course, they probably weren't bombed, you know, so they...
Well, yeah, that would be different.
No, it's very different, I'm sure. So when you're down in the cellar, are your parents scared? Are you picking up that they're scared?
Well, I had a sort of father. Briefly, I don't know who my father is. I don't know my real father. So I was a foster child during the war. And then when I came back to Brixton, because in the 30s, if you became pregnant and you weren't married, you had to get married to someone to give the child a name. Thank God they don't do that these days, although goodness knows what's going to happen. Anyway, um, so he was a London taxi driver, a most unpleasant man. But taxi drivers during the London Blitz were fire engines, they were ambulances, they were used for everything you can possibly think of. So he would work nights and be out in the Blitz. So he wasn't there, and she was. And they also had rescued a boy, a 15-year-old boy, on the kinder transport. He was rescued from, I don't know which concentration camp. But
wait a minute, the kinder transport, what is that?
That is the transportation thing that the underground people in Europe created to rescue children from concentration.
Oh, okay.
So George, who was 15, he came to our house and he became my foster brother. So he was young, and he was the most gentle person and grew into the most sweetest man you can imagine.
Where was it? What was his country originally?
He was in Germany.
He was German.
So he was in a concentration camp, and I don't know. I think it was Buchenwald, but I'm not sure. So anyway, they rescued him and a lot of children. And actually, it's funny. I don't know if you know this about Highbridge, because I did not know about Highbridge. But apparently, there was a man born in Highbridge, and his name was Frank Foley. And Frank Foley rescued 10,000 Jews.
Oh my goodness.
And they used to say to me, this is the same school Frank Foley was in. You might even be sitting at his desk.
Oh my goodness.
So I have his book somewhere. Anyway, it's an amazing book. He was in some kind of civil service stationed in Germany. I mean, he met Hitler, he met Goebbels, whatever. And he was able to smuggle these people, 10,000 of them, out.
Wow.
More than Schindler did. And so after, let me see, this has had to be in the early 80s, they decided that they will build a statue commemoration of this man and all the people that he served. And they heard about me because I didn't know my father. I only just discovered that when I was 20 that I'm half Jewish and half Irish Catholic.
Oh, okay, quite a mix.
Two guilt religions. Lucky me.
Yes.
Oh God. So they contacted me from the village, from the church, and asked me if I would go over there to unveil the statue and to then go back a second time when the church was filled with all these notables, very famous people, and deliver not a sermon exactly, but something about Frank Foley and what he did.
Wow.
And asked me also to talk about my life in the village as a little girl.
Oh, what an honor.
Tremendous honor.
What an honor.
And they were so kind to me. And very touched by my story, because in Highbridge, it's largely Church of England, Baptist, whatever. And the family I was with was very, very strict Baptist. But the church across the road from the house I lived in was Church of England, and that's where it's big. That's where they had all these meetings, which was really powerful. And so they asked me what it was like, and I said, well, it's a little village, and the children had never heard of anybody Jewish. So they used to run around after me and fill my head to see if I had horns. And fortunately, they didn't see if I had a tail.
Were they mean?
Oh, yes. Very. But then this woman, the other daughter, her name was Nell, she was so kind to me. And as I said, her older son just took me under his wing. But I wanted to show you something, because this has come up too in this COVID thing we've had here, and people moaning and groaning about wearing a mask. When I was 6, I had to carry this wherever I went.
It's a gas mask.
The gas mask.
I know.
And this is what I wore.
Yeah,
And when
show us it.
people start their nonsense, I take this out and wave it right in their faces. I can't go into a tire shop today because the smell of rubber sickens me.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, look at that. I remember my granddad had one.
It weighs about 5 pounds. Imagine that little girl. This is all steel.
And you're a little girl, you're a little.
This is a little girl's one, little child's one. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So it was strapped on the back of my head.
Yeah.
And I could see through that like that. This was very heavy because it was all metal.
Yeah, they didn't have the lightweight stuff back then.
But we had to carry them all the time in that cardboard box because we never knew when there was going to be an air raid that we needed to put this on immediately. So that's what I do when these people carry on about wearing a little piece of linen over their face.
I hear you. I hear you. It's funny. I think we've lived so long. I mean, I've lived all my life. I'm very grateful, but without any war, without anything affecting me. And, I'm 66 now. So a lot of people have lived that way. And I think it's easy to get upset about small things. I don't think we know what really being resourceful is. And I know more than a lot of people because I grew up relatively poor in England. So, right after the war, I was born in 56. So there was still, I think they just stopped rationing then. So, I was brought up having to be, very frugal. It was just the way it was. But we are very fortunate.
Your family told you about what has happened.
Yeah.
But you know what? When you mentioned that I was a thanatologist, that means I'm a bereavement specialist.
Right.
So I work with parents who've lost their children to death. And people say to me sometimes, why do you do that? It's so morbid. And I said, it's not morbid. And I do it because of the war. And this is why I did it. When we were bombed out, hungry, homeless, had nothing, people would come out of their houses who had little more than we had and take us in and feed us and get us some clothing. And I remember clearly at 8 years old, I looked at these people and I said, I want to be like that when I grow up. And I am. Yeah. All the work I do is dealing with pain, emotional pain.
I know. I mean, you do incredible work in I know a whole load of arenas, but all arenas that involve a lot of grief and difficulty, etc. So, and you use humor.
Oh, a lot.
Tell me more about that.
Well, I also work with cancer patients, and actually, I volunteer at a place called Gilda's Club. Are you familiar with Gilda Radner?
Yes, I remember her dying.
For her, because she died young from ovarian cancer.
Yeah.
So her family got together and created these places called Gilda's Club. They're not treatment places, but they have all kinds of workshops and everything you can possibly think of. They're absolutely marvelous. It's all free. And they have one where I am at Warrington. And there's one in Philadelphia. They're all over the country, and they're wonderful things. So mine is called Laughing When Nothing Seems Funny and When It Is. And I was with them for an hour and a half this morning, and they are so funny because they're given the freedom to express that humor. No one's going to say really stupid things like, oh, I see you're over it then. You're over your cancer, you're fine, because you're laughing. They don't have that. And they are outrageous, I tell you. If I had a language barrier, it would be speechless. Because anything comes out of their mouth, you never know what's going to come out of their mouth. But even in, I've noticed in any kind of self-help organization that I know of, that before any meeting, people are talking and laughing. even the parents of murdered children, which is my specialty, when they go in the meeting, they talk about whatever's going on, and then after the meeting, they're chatting again. And that is so healing. I always say, you don't ever laugh at, you laugh with.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you're part of them. You know, my John, you know John, he had 3 cancers.
Yeah.
And he died almost, next month will be 7 years. I can't hardly believe it.
I miss John. Yeah.
And,
I remember him very kindly. Yeah. Very warm.
I was his care sharer for 10 years. And so I've had different cancers, like my face and melanoma in my arms. So I know that kind of feeling, but the things that some of these men and women have been through, and they also have people there whose loved ones have died from cancer. So they're there as well. And when we're not together, we're there twice a month. When we're not together, they're in touch with one another.
Right.
They just created a whole support group for themselves, which is absolutely marvelous. It really is.
So you feel though that this ability and sort of drive to help kind of came from you receiving that?
That comes knowing some of my little friends were killed also there, so I knew that.
Okay. Right.
Yes.
Right. Wow.
That's where it came from.
Wow. So
I'm not afraid either. That's a big thing. I'm not afraid of people in great grief and pain. A lot of people are. They don't know what to say, don't know what to do. So I say to them sometimes, well, rather than say something ridiculous, don't say anything at all. And just recently, you know, this is a big thing, on Mother's Day, I wrote something on my Facebook page about a lot of people do not have their children anymore.
right.
They have their children in spirit, and they will always be loved and never forgotten. So be careful what you say. That's how I ended it. Be careful what you say.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think when you say you're not afraid? How did you get to be at that point of not being afraid? I mean, I've worked in hospice, but I have not worked with people who have lost people, and it's very difficult, I think. Yeah, I find it difficult.
It's a challenge, I admit, but I think the fear is that if I say something that's not acceptable, then I can always apologize.
Right, right.
So, but I really, you know, when I'm interviewed or when I work with the recovering community on a Sunday, I talk more then than I do other times. I was taught years and years ago in a 12-step program I'm a member of, to take the cotton out of my ears and stick it in my mouth. And I learned to listen. So 90% of my work really is listening. Yes. Because people say to me, they just don't listen. Or change the subject. You know, I talk about my loved one who died, and they'll look at the curtains, or that's toxic.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not afraid of speaking out either.
Yeah.
When I think people are saying ridiculous.
You know, you have touched so many people's lives. I mean, you're just really an incredible woman. And
thank you.
Yeah, just and you know, and that trickles down. That trickles down.
It does.
So when you say you lost some little friends during the war, how was that? You know.
Well, houses were bombed in other streets,
okay.
And the children didn't get out.
Right, right. So, what was the kind of sound, you know, was it just, I can't even imagine it, to be honest. I can't even picture.
What part can't you picture?
Well, I can't picture, like, what did you just hear people say, oh, that you know, their house was bombed and little Susie's dead?
Yes.
That's how it was.
That's how it was. And but the Londoners, they don't really have much fear.
No.
They're very optimistic people, and I mean, terrible things happened in that war, dreadful things like the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Awful, awful thing, which we're seeing again with the Russian Hitler. We're seeing it all over again,
Yeah.
which horrifies me.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating because I have a friend, her name's Iris Scimitar, and she wrote a book about Far from the East End, it was called, about London during the Blitz. And then another friend, Eileen, she's in Australia. And all three of us say, we would like to go to the Ukraine. Now we can't, we'll be in the way, obviously.
Right.
But the sense of knowing what it's like
Yes.
kind of drives us. So I do what I can here,
Yeah.
fundraising.
Yeah.
But it's very important, I think, that people just have an open mind and an open heart about these things. Because as you say, a lot of it is unimaginable.
Yeah.
It really, really is, you know, and I think about that life. It surprised me. And I was watching something about the Ukraine the other day, actually, talking about the children who are taken away from, you know, their father. The fathers are staying to fight and so on. And the commentator was saying, and these children will need help for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
I've been in therapy for years.
Yeah.
I had PTSD.
Of course.
The fireworks would make me freeze. If I hear a police siren, I would freeze.
Yes.
Not as bad now as I was, but that kind of trauma doesn't go away. It eases. I don't jump so much. And John helped me a lot because he lied about his age when he was 17 and went into the Royal Navy, straight to combat. And he was very helpful with me with that when I was because he got it. He understood.
Yes, yes. So I was thinking about this morning. I mean, not that Ukrainians are necessarily going to see this, but who knows? And what advice would you give to anybody that is dealing with a child who has been traumatized, whether it's a parent or, do you have any thoughts on that?
The most important thing, and I learned this working with bereaved families, but also I read a book recently where they talked about children in this country that were exposed to school shootings.
Yes.
And they kept saying, and I hear this a lot, they just don't listen.
Ah, the same thing.
Just listen. Let them just talk about whatever. And ask them things like, would you like a hug?
Yeah.
Would you like to sit on my lap? Would you like me to read the book to you? Would you like to talk about your mummy and daddy?
Right.
Just not have any boundaries with these children because they are very afraid.
Yes.
They're abandoned. They're abandoned children.
Yeah.
I mean, not purposely, but
no. But as a child, you have that, you don't have the capacity to even understand that it's not on purpose. You're abandoned.
It just is.
Yeah.
And so I believe that compassion is very, very important here, and to keep it simple. Really keep it simple. Children do not want any kind of complicated things. I think it's a very good idea if you can find therapists who really know about children and trauma.
Okay.
And certainly benefit from
Yeah. Yeah.
but I think of the children at the border that were snatched out of their parents' arms. I mean, what's going on there even? Are they back? No, they're not. It's appalling.
Yeah.
And, Marie, it's always the innocent that suffer the most.
Always, always. Yeah.
No question.
Always.
14 members of my family went straight to combat and they were out doing something, but we weren't. My family, a lot of them were taxi drivers and then worked through the night, as I said, as ambulances and firefighters and so on. But they were actively doing something. We just had to sit and wait.
Yeah. And not know what was going to happen next. well, I guess they didn't either, but that would be the hardest. Just like in Ukraine now, nobody knows what's going to happen next.
Nobody knows what that butcher is going to do next. Absolutely not. And I'm a pretty reasonable woman, but I look at him the way I looked at Hitler. And I can remember as a little girl fantasizing what I would like to do had I got hold of Hitler. Yeah. I have no pity, no sympathy, nothing. Nothing at all.
Well, Zoom is going to cut us off in a few minutes.
How thoughtless.
How thoughtless, I know. And I have my cup of tea, yes, and I actually have 6 stones ready to be shipped out to you. As soon as we finish this, they are going out to UPS. So you have an assortment.
Yes.
You have 2 raisins, you have 2 what was it? It was the white chocolate with raspberry and 2 of the orange and cranberry. So
let me tell you, if you're listening, people, this is the best. I've ordered, and the one for June 7th, I've ordered a gift box.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah, I have the order.
And so, I sent it to my oldest daughter once, and she was ecstatic.
So that's
they're absolutely wonderful, Marie. Do a marvelous job.
Thank you. Well, they're made with love, you know.
Christmas cake.
I was just thinking the other day, even if I don't do it generally, I'm going to make you a Christmas cake. You're going to get it from me as a gift, okay?
I think tea is the answer to all ills.
I agree with you. I agree with you. So anyway, friends, this is Yvonne Kaye, Dr. Yvonne Kaye, and you can find out a lot more about her at YvonneKayeWisdom.com. She does so many different things. So please visit her website and learn more. And thank you so much.
Thank you. I just wish we were closer.
I know, me too.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I feel very delighted about that. Thank you.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.